Kia ora, no mai, welcome to The Elephant. I'm Miriam Makamba.
And I'm Mark Kreisel. There's an elephant in the room, and we need to talk about it.
I think DEI has created resentment. It's created a situation where people get jobs and they're not sure if they got the job because they're a minority or because they have the skill set or because it's merit.
Aotearoa has got to shift into another gear, right? And it is a leader's responsibility to not just look at the balance sheet, but to look at the teams they are building.
We're not trying to be woke. You know, all of the research, whether McKinsey's, BCG, it points to the fact that diverse leadership in executive teams, boards, just result in better outcomes.
I'm a little skeptical of the research. The research is quite politically motivated.
What's the data on MEI?
The data on MEI suggests that if you hire on merit, you get results. That is,
Can you tell me the source?
I don't have it offhand.
Today we're asking, is equity and inclusion killing excellence? One side says, open every door.
It does not discriminate. When you make these changes that level the playing field, it's good for every employee.
And the other says only the best should walk through.
And our country will be woke no longer.
Yes, that's right. We're tackling the workplace tug of war that's got everyone talking.
You've probably heard the term DEI. That's diversity, equity, and inclusion. The idea of building workplaces that are fair, welcoming, and truly representative.
Now, while many say we still haven't cracked it,
the civil rights issue of our time is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion.
others say it's all gone too far.
We are continuing to fight against the woke diversity, equality, and inclusion in our departments and systems.
DEI about to be out the door. There's a new hiring framework coming to town. This one is called MEI.
That's right. MEI, the DEI counterpoint, and it stands for Merit, Excellence and Intelligence.
It was introduced to the public by Scale AI CEO Alexander Wang, who announced in early 24 that its formal hiring policy would be based on MEI.
Meritocracy is the core and fundamental, North Star. I don't have any option but to hire the best and most brilliant and most capable people for every single job inside my company. We have no option but to be meritocratic and to practice MEI, and in the process, we achieve diversity.
And since then, the idea has caught fire globally. Elon Musk and other global leaders cheering Wang's approach and calling DEI racist and propaganda.
You don't believe in DEI, right?
The only basis for promoting somebody should be their skills, talents, and their integrity, and that's it.
So while we're asking today, is equity killing excellence, we could equally ask, is DEI under attack from a returning wave of old school and harmful rhetoric that casts a singular and dominant lens over what excellence is?
I don't know why we even listen to white people talk about DEI and racism, because they are the least qualified to define it.
And part of the framing is the way some voices are now weaponizing DEI, claiming it leads to lowered standards, even at the cost of safety. US President Donald Trump claimed after a tragic mid-air collision over the Potomac River that DEI hiring policies in aviation could have contributed to the crash.
Must have only the highest standards for those who work in our aviation system. I changed the Obama standards from very mediocre at best to extraordinary. And then when I left office and Biden took over, he changed them back to lower than ever before.
Now, as long as we're talking aviation, let's bring it home. Some years ago, when our Prime Minister was leading Air New Zealand, he accepted a global award for diversity after increasing the numbers of women in senior leadership from 16% in 2013 to 43% in 2019.
There is a big elephant in this room. The diversity track record from all of us in the global aviation industry is pretty abysmal. Chris Luxon said then that we need to set targets with real teeth, citing the business case for diversity.
But now, as the leader of the country, well, not so much.
We want to make sure that everything is done on the basis of meritocracy.
The PM tasked his self-proclaimed least woke minister, Judith Collins, to overhaul the Public Service Act to ensure it was driven by meritocracy. So, is DEI over?
Yes, well, joining us now in the studio is Alexia Hilbertadou, a social entrepreneur and founder of Girl Boss, which aims to empower women in leadership, entrepreneurship and STEM, and Cara Smith, country lead for the recruitment company Talent International, which has a strong DEI focus. Ngā mihi nui kia kōrua, nau mai, hara mai, lovely to see you both. Alexia, what do you think of this idea that DEI, we should do away with it and just go for merit, excellence and intelligence, MEI?
I think it's a balanced conversation. I think one thing which I know is that young people are really resonating with these ideas of excellence. And I know through our work, we work with a lot of diverse young women from varied backgrounds. And what really resonates with them is when we're saying, I want you to be ambitious. I want you to aim high. I want you to not be defined by your circumstance or by your identity. And I think that's a message that's really resonating with a lot of young people right now. And I think why that conversation is coming to light. At the same time, we've also got to have those conversations around how do we make sure that everyone's coming along on that journey and making sure that there is equal opportunities for all.
Cara, what are corporate bosses, what are the C-suite saying to you?
Yeah, I mean, we meet with clients, every day who are very well-intentioned. And in particular at the C-suite, they want to increase diversity. We work with banks, government organisations, etc., who genuinely want to represent Aotearoa. So that's what they say. The friction, I think, is that once that trickles down to the frontline decision maker on talent, they are under pressure and they want solutions right here, right now. And fundamentally, they're actually choosing from a rather limited talent pool.
Do either of you two feel like you've been held back? You for being a woman, you for being Māori? Do you feel that has counted against you and that you needed something like a DEI to get somewhere?
In all honesty, no, I don't. However, I want to recognise that I have had some amazing advocates advocate for me, one, to push me into actually, hey, you need to go for your next role, you need to be in a leadership role. My current boss, who's the CEO, says you could be a CEO one day, etc. So no, I don't think so, but I have had some really good people around me.
And what about you, Alexia?
When I reflect on my journey, I started Girl Boss when I was just 16 years old, and it was really spurred by my own experiences. I actually won a coding competition when I was in high school, and I was very excited. And the next day I walked into my digital technology class, and my proud teacher announced the news to the boys in my class. I was the only girl in my tech class at the time. And I was expecting a bit of fanfare, but instead I got a completely different reaction. You only won because you're a girl. They probably just wanted you for the promotional ads. I thought that was quite the compliment secret. Girls' brains are smaller than boys' brains. It's been scientifically proven. Yes, really. These were the comments from the boys in my technology class.
Bad losers.
And really spurred by that feeling and the injustice of it, at 16, I started Girl Boss as a community for young women passionate about STEM leadership and entrepreneurship. So having an ability to connect with young women and share my story and say, hey, where you start does not define where you can go. And I started Girl Boss at 16. It's taken me to all of these incredible places. And that's really my ambition for all of our young people out there.
I guess not everybody has that same drive, or those people in your corner pushing you. Do people from minority type groups need an extra push?
More total, more support.
More support.
Yes, I think so. I think we need to ask probably a different question. Do we really want, going back to your question about the CEO, do we really want to change the representation at, coming from the lens of technology recruitment in the tech teams? Do we really want to triple the representation of Māori and Pacifica? Do we really want equal gender diversity in the leadership team? If so, we need to think differently. And that means some groups are going to need to give a little bit more tautoko to. We need to think about it differently. I think the problem is when someone hears that question, they go, I didn't get it, so you shouldn't get it. We have to think differently.
Yeah. Also, I think when people hear, we know that there is feedback that globally that DEI is racist, it's propaganda, it's going to make our businesses go slower. How do we get past that notion that DEI is a problem?
I think we need to stop looking at the edge cases, right? And stop feeding into the media. if you're leading a business, you want to have the most innovative, successful business. You want to have a group of people sitting around that table who have different lived experiences. It's about building the best team who reflects your customers.
Are we getting a little bit precious about the acronyms? Like, is DEI actually MEI?
Well, I don't see them as opposites. I think that even when I heard about and was invited into the space, I said, and I believe there's very few people who are actively working in what's so-called DEI space who also don't believe in excellence and training up and now investing in our young people so they're the best people for the job. I don't think there's many people, at least in my experience, who are like, let's chuck in someone underqualified just because they meet that criteria. I think that, I'm not saying that maybe hasn't happened before, but I definitely haven't seen in my experience that's happening at scale.
We need to bring it back to building the best possible teams and ultimately taking it a step up. I think what we can all agree on is that Aotearoa needs to go into another gear, or we're going to keep losing our best and brightest overseas.
How did you get to where you are? You're a Northern Māori. What made you different as a young one?
I think I choose to have a different story about that same thing. We could focus on the negatives. The North does have, lower socioeconomic, higher crime, etc. Or we could go, our people were navigators. Our people were explorers, and if we can tap into that strength. Secondly, I would say my mother. May she rest in peace. She passed 2 years ago. My mother, who completely got fed up in her own situation, retrained, and then embarked on an international career. And we got given then very diverse international perspectives. And so I started right at the bottom in an administration role. That organisation, they gave me a shot.
I loved your story about your mum. I was raised by a young Samoan single mum, and for the first few years of our life, we actually shared a bedroom together and we had a curtain in the middle. And she made the decision to go to university, the first in her family to do so, whilst I was a young child. And she would say to me each night, this might be where we are, but this is not where you are going. I really believe we actually can go out there and we can go all the way, and we should be unapologetically ambitious, to your point, for our nation to go all the way.
Globally, we see this conversation. The DEI has got to go. It's not, as we know, we've talked about it right through this. Do you guys think it's had enough time to make the changes that its advocates want?
No. We need multiple generations of initiatives to come through to make tangible differences. Going back to your point about the question about the CEO, the well-intentioned CEO sitting there going, perhaps we currently have 3% representation of Māori, and we want to double or triple that. That's not going to happen in a 3-year strategic plan. We need to think long-term, multi-generational. And furthermore, we need to think through the lens of we have very low productivity in this country. And if we can't, if we stop, we're not thinking enough about bringing everyone through and creating a more productive, thriving nation, we're going to miss a mark.
We are so grateful. Is there anything that you guys would like to, because we've got to wrap, but do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave us with? Let's start with you, Alexia.
Yeah, my final message would be really that we need to keep encouraging our young people to be unapologetically ambitious. We want everyone to be striving for excellence and to really further that conversation that DEI and MEI are not opposites. And in fact, we should be supporting and boosting every single young person in this country so they can go forth and make our country more productive, as you brilliantly said, so we can achieve our collective goals.
Cara?
That would be my final thought. I think we can all agree Aotearoa has got to shift into another gear, right? And it is a leader's responsibility to not just look at the balance sheet, but to look at the teams they are building. You want to be more innovative, faster decision-making. We want to outperform international organisations. You need lived experiences around that table.
Love it. You guys are awesome. Ngā mihi nui ki a kōrua. Thank you both so very much for coming onto The Elephant and sharing your whakaaro with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now, before we go to our discussion, let's revisit the architect of the term MEI, Alexander Wang. Now, while he promotes meritocracy, he also says
There is a mistaken belief that meritocracy somehow conflicts with diversity. I strongly disagree. A hiring process based on merit will naturally yield a variety of backgrounds, perspectives, and ideas. But is Alexander Wang correct about all that? Joining us now in the studio, Dr. Oliver Harwich, Executive Director of the New Zealand Initiative, and Katie Brannock, CEO of Global Women.
And down the line, we have Yaron Brook, who is the chair of the Ayn Rand Institute. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us on The Elephant. This is a really interesting discussion. We've talked about it a lot before we've come on. Let's start by talking about the business case for DEI, Katie.
Well, the business case is clear and compelling. All of the research, whether McKinsey's, BCG, it points to the fact that diverse leadership and executive teams, boards, just result in better outcomes, better innovation, better commercial outcomes. So, yeah.
Do you agree with all of that, Oliver?
Absolutely. I would like to have a lot of diversity in my team. I would like to have a team with experts in their fields and ideally people from different fields so they can enrich each other's perspective. And that's what we have at the initiative, for example. For a while, we had a PhD qualified historian. We've got someone with a PhD in psychology. We have a couple of PhDs in economics. I've got a PhD
is that
in law.
diversity?
That is diversity because it's diversity of viewpoints and of disciplines. And you bring this together. And so any kind of diversity adds because you learn different perspectives from your colleagues.
I'm a little skeptical of the research. The research is quite politically motivated. There was an era about 15 years ago where diversity was the thing. And, McKinsey typically writes papers to justify the thing that is popular at any given time or any given moment. Certainly some diversity is incredibly valuable, diversity of talents and skills and opinions, even different perspectives from different communities, it can be valuable. But if it were truly the case that diversity equaled merit, we wouldn't be having a debate. Well, the problem is that DEI often overrides the idea of merit, the idea of equality, the idea of what would actually maximize production or maximize profit or maximize the business case.
When I think about diversity of thought and diversity in all its forms, so gender, ethnicity, etc., and I think that businesses are missing a trick if they don't have within their organisations people that look like the consumers and clients and customers that they serve. And, the cautionary tales that I suppose come to mind for me, not just the research, Nokia, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce it, sorry, and Kodak, who, had predominantly white male boards and executive teams and missed seeing opportunity and perspective that they would have if they had had a broader range of people that were part of the decision-making those businesses made.
I think if you're looking at our workforce, it's becoming increasingly diverse. You just have to look at our universities, look at law schools. The majority of students are female. It is just a matter of time until they work their way through the workforce. They will reach higher executive positions along the way. And at some stage, they will do what these previous old male, pale, stale people did, and they will have non-executive careers.
But didn't that get to that point where more women are doing it because of diversity programs to help women get to that position where they can legitimately challenge for a place in the workplace?
I don't think it happened because of diversity programs. I believe it happened because there was a cultural shift underway where it simply was no longer acceptable that we have different rights for men and women. And over time, that cultural shift manifested itself in all sorts of ways. Actually, more women going to university, more women taking leadership positions, and more women eventually going on the non-executive leadership too.
Yaron?
I think the challenge is when companies try to force it, or even worse, when we get laws coming down from legislatures to try to force this kind of diversity and to put aside merit. And look, we can pretend that companies are hiring women and minorities because they think it's good for the company. But the reality is many of them are doing it as a consequence of pressure from governments, pressure from special interest groups, a variety of different pressure groups, to be politically correct, pressure from McKinsey to be politically correct. So I believe leave it to the marketplace, hire the best people, and best needs to include what it is you bring to the table, given where you come from, given maybe your experience as a consumer, your experience in the community, but the totality of your skill set that that should be counted as merit. But at the end of the day, businesses should hire the people who are going to most contribute to the business.
But doesn't that just entrench the status quo? Because nobody starts at the same place. You're talking about the marketplace finding the answer, but nobody ever starts at the same place.
Nobody ever starts at the same place, and to expect people to start at the same place, or for that matter, end at the same place, is mythology. It can't happen. It will never happen. But the reality is that businesses want to hire qualified people. They don't want to go bust. They don't want to fail, and they look for the best people. And look, those businesses that practice racism or practice sexism or practice any other discriminatory practice that excludes some people who have high ability are not going to do as well.
I suppose I just wanted to pick up on the sort of merit and diversity, equity, inclusion sort of not coexisting point, because I suppose when I think about diversity, equity, inclusion, I think of it as sitting comfortably alongside merit, because every business person I've ever met wants to hire someone who's going to do the job well. Nobody wants to not, forgive the double negative, hire for merit. I think that as organisations, you want systems and processes when you're hiring that protect against bias, unconscious or otherwise, so that you are, and turned your mind to the fact that you would prefer to have more diversity in your organisation because it's good for business.
Yaron, you were saying it was sort of 15 years ago that we started really advocating for DEI. Is this organic process actually the result of that positive affirmative action for diversity?
It was clearly happening already well before DEI. It was starting to happen. And again, the marketplace is a very powerful motivator to bring in the best people and to take into account all the characteristics and to eliminate any kind of subconscious biases. I mean, if I have a bias that is going to lose me money, there's a huge incentive for me to get rid of that bias. And there's a huge incentive in organizations to get rid of the bias. I think DEI has done the opposite. I think DEI, because we've elevated it, has created resentment. It's created a situation where people get jobs, if you're a woman or minority, and they're not sure if they got the job because they're a minority or because they have the skill set or because it's merit. I think that your co-employees, the people working with you, are not sure why you got the job. Did you get the job because you're a minority or not? When I graduated with a PhD in finance years ago, and I was on the job market, universities were looking for a Black PhD in finance or a woman PhD in finance because they had to meet certain the precursor to DEI in terms of diversity. And there was a Black female on the market. She got a job offer from every single university who had a job opening. Everybody wanted her. Not because, she was good, but was she better than everybody else in the job market? No.
Maybe she was, Yaron.
No, she was good. I'm not saying she wasn't good, but was she better than everybody else? Clearly not, and nobody thought so. They were making her an offer because they wanted a woman or somebody Black in the department.
We can't afford to discriminate against anyone. I take people when they come, when they present themselves, and when they fit. And then whether they are black, white, or checkered, or male or female, or whatever in between, I don't care. I want the best people for my team. And we've always hired along the same lines. And also, let's face it, it's a very small market, New Zealand. We all know how difficult it is to get decent, qualified people who then also fit your team. If I then started to discriminate on some secondary characteristics, I think I would only hurt my business.
Olive, do you think that companies have a responsibility, say, to help to lift, say, ethnic communities and put them into the workplace to actually motivate and incentivize other members of that community to come through?
No, I don't think we have that responsibility because that would be the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. I think as a society, with our culture, we have a responsibility to expect exactly the same kind of performance from every ethnic community, really, regardless of any other characteristics.
Even though they're starting...
a failure, don't you?
Well, it would be a failure if we needed DEI to correct for things that our culture didn't produce before. So what I mean is we should expect all our schools, for example, to produce excellent results for all our students, regardless of their backgrounds. And then you wouldn't need DEI afterwards because you would actually have a very well-educated population that is colorblind.
The reality is DEI programs are used to hire people who are less qualified in order to meet some kind of, metric and standard, in order to appease pressure groups and to appease politicians. If it was truly just, it's all merit, there would be nobody would be debating this issue. Nobody would be upset about it. The reality is, at least in the US, I don't know about New Zealand, but in the US, clearly this is an issue where companies have a quota, have quotas for women, have quotas for minorities, and they move to fulfill those quotas in spite of merit.
Is DEI, is it just about companies feeling good about themselves?
No, I think it's good for business. As I said, I get the real benefit of working closely with a lot of business leaders who, this is not a nice to have. They're not trying to be woke. They know and believe that having more diverse workforces will result in better outcomes for their businesses and better bottom line.
But Yaron says that this notion is predicated on faulty research.
Well, there's research and then there's lived experience. And at the end of the day, the research that we have shows that Champions for Change organisations, for instance, that do have these commitments are disproportionately outperforming their competitors. That's pretty compelling evidence.
It is the freedom of every...
If that's the case, then what are we debating? I mean, we'll all agree companies should outperform their competitors. They should do the best job possible and bring in the best people possible to do that, whatever they're, then there's no argument. I don't think that's what DEI means.
I think there is practically no disagreement between all of us here because we all want companies to do well. I mean, even if you're arguing the case for strict DEI, your starting point is actually that you think this makes the company go faster.
True.
And Yaron is more skeptical of DEI, but also from the perspective that actually he wants to make companies go faster. So actually there's absolutely no disagreement between us. I think the only disagreement that we might have in the discussion is actually where should this come from? Should this be mandated? Should this be potentially legislated for? And I think on that debate, I'm with Yaron. I think this kind of interference is not warranted because in the end, it is always the responsibility of entrepreneurs, of boards, of leadership to find solutions that work for their companies because ultimately they have to live with the consequences, whether the company performs or not. So I think nobody should take that responsibility away from companies. And in the end, we should really try to find solutions that work for companies.
But surely, Oliver, if it's just purely a marketplace solution, and to you too, Yaron, that's just going to entrench the status quo. We're never going to get any change. We're never going to get companies that look like the societies that they live in.
Well, I think it's just not true because if you look at markets, I mean, the one thing that's constant about markets is that they change. They change all the time. They adapt to new circumstances. Markets today look very different from markets even 10, 20 years ago. So why would we expect things to remain exactly the same if we didn't intervene?
Well, do they look better because you've had the DEI?
No, I think they look better because actually we find out what works and what doesn't work, and they get better and improve themselves all the time.
I think what business leaders that I'm exposed to focused on is not having mandatory quotas. It's actually having good data so that we shine a light on things. And the reason for that is because you manage what you measure. And so when you can see gender pay gaps and you can see ethnic pay gaps, you can see where there's disparities, you can turn your mind to, is there something going on here that I could do something about? Is there an opportunity I'm missing? Trying to make sure that, you are doing what's right for the business. So I think it's a really important distinction because I don't think anyone's advocating for anything that would be the sort of thing you were talking about and that you've experienced in the US.
What's the data say about, we've got data on DEI. What's the data on MEI, on merit?
Well, the data on MEI suggests that if you hire on merit, you get results. That is...
Can you tell me the source? So you quoted McKinsey earlier for DEI. What would be a source that we could look at?
I don't have it offhand, the list of authors, but there's a number of academic studies that have looked at companies that hire based on ability. And look, MEI just says merit, but merit is there's a wide spectrum of what merit is, right? Merit can include bringing a different perspective, certainly a diversity of ideas that might come from different backgrounds. So there's overlap there, but the data on DEI, pure DEI, where DEI, at least in the US again, is done based on kind of quotas, is not good.
Well, in the end, I think everything is a cultural question. It's the kind of culture question what society we want to live in. what expectations do we have? What expectations do we have of equal rights? What expectations do we have of education experiences? And so I think in the end, it is a question of culture, which you can't legislate for, but it's something that we all together can shape.
We have to wrap, but I just want to give you each a chance to leave a final thought with us, Yaron.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we agree on a lot, and we basically agree that the standard for businesses, at least, to hire, should be ability and merit and how broadly defined. And I think that's true of universities. Universities should take students who fit the particular university standards, and those should be measurable. And throughout our education, we should aspire to raise people up by having high expectations of them.
I could not agree more. We need higher expectations of everyone, regardless of their background, and I think that will lead to automatically diverse outcomes.
And Katie.
Diversity of thought and diversity in of itself is great for business. That's me.
Well, kei te mihi nui ki a koutou katoa. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us and bringing your whakaaro, your experience to the table. We so appreciate it here on The Elephant. Ngā mihi.
Kia ora.
Thank you.
What do you think, brother?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? As a white male, I would like to think that I didn't achieve all that I've achieved in my career because of how I look, but there's probably an element of truth with that. I had a colleague who said to me once, I would hate to think I got the job because of how I looked, but I would hate to think I didn't get the job because of how I looked.
Yeah, God, that's really powerful, isn't it? I still think that DEI has not had its chance. It's not had a moment, really, where we've been able to see it in its fullness and, you know, kind of successful reflection into all of our industry. So I feel worried about this idea that we're going to bring MEI in, and I do not like the idea of MEI because I think, as we've said in the script, I think it does actually cast a very narrow lens on what excellence is, on what merit is. Who's deciding these things? Well, it's the power brokers. It's the people who are sitting in those chairs right now who are deciding whether or not, whether merit should look like this or should look like that. And so I worry that it isn't wide enough yet.
If you pick an All Black team, you want to pick the best players.
Yeah.
You don't want to just pick, you know, we need this many Māori, we need this many Pacifica, we need this many Asians, and we need this many Pākehā.
I don't take rugby or sports as seriously as I do business or you know, any other kind of.
But business does.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the All Blacks are a business, aren't they? And they have chosen purely on the very best players. So it's a good point, but. Nonetheless, there is an absolute problem we still have with not casting a wide enough, more inclusive lens across all of our communities. And how do you bring them through if you're going to say it should only look like this version of meritocracy? We know that there's unconscious bias. We know that this exists. There are so many studies that prove this. Now, I was interested too that when we said, hey, Yaron, we know that you've quoted McKinsey as having supposedly faulty research. Well, where's the research? Quote something for us from MEI that proves that that's as powerful as DEI. And Yaron did not have anything ready. That's not to say that he doesn't have that research, but I was interested that that wasn't there immediately.
I don't think we all start on the same start line. And somehow we've got to address that. And I think it's important that businesses and educational institutes and us, we look like the societies that we live in.
Yeah, and
so how do we get to that point?
Yeah.
And whether it's whether it starts in education or whether it starts in the workplace, there has to be a way that better represents it. And we have come so far. We do look more like that than we used to, but still a long way to go.
Long way to go, I think so. Anyway, that is the elephant for this week and actually also for this season, e te whānau. Thank you so much for all of your tautoko, all of your support for us. If you want to keep across our programs until we come back again with another season, remember you can catch us on the New Zealand Herald's homepage, YouTube, iHeart and your favourite social media platform.
The elephant in the room. Time to talk.
Yes, keep talking, e te whānau. Until next time, mauri ora.